Good evening, everyone. Happy quarantine. Welcome to Get the Fork Out. We have part 2 with Eduardo Garcia and his story, what he went through, where he's going, and the inspirational tale that he tells. I can't recommend his documentary Charged enough. It's very moving, very inspirational. One of those movies that just makes you want to just grasp every day of your life, because we don't know. Like, my bro just got zapped by 2200 volts and life changed forever for him. Can't recommend enough. Charged. It's basically everywhere you download movies. So finish this part 2 and then watch Charged. Awesome. You won't regret it, I promise. No one ever does. This is what they say. I recommend it. So and so, you should watch this. Like a week later, 2 weeks later, holy shit, I just watched Charged. I'm not lying. Check it out. It's awesome. Promise.
A massive, top of the line production here. Just get some concepts across and have some fun. What do you? That's good for me. Good for me.
You're driving. You're driving. So if you know what you want to get, then I'll let you lead us, and I'll take it wherever we gotta go.
All right. Well, let me
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of
before
course.
You go.
Yeah.
Something struck me, and it's just insane that 2 decades can go by, and like Brennan Dates that lives in here is just, it's the Brennan Dates I've created in my mind. And because our physical connectivity has been few and far between for a long time now, but the integrity of our connectivity has, I think, kept our relationship pretty true.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me when I heard you sort of not certain how comfortable I would be talking about my injury, and potentially maybe refraining from pushing or pulling me into places that may have felt sensitive for you. I kind of picked that up on our last call. And I recognize that because we haven't spent lots of time together in the last decade since my injury, I wanted to make sure you hear it from me that, I mean, the whole world knows what Charge says, which is all true. And so I am 100% open to go anywhere so long as I feel it's going to serve whoever listens, watches, or is a part of this. So no hesitations needed on your side, man. I know where your heart is, and you can take me wherever we've got to go.
I appreciate that. I mean, and just to backtrack to how my thought process on that is that I've never asked you about your injury. Like I out of respect, not because I wasn't curious. I think it's an incredible story, but just out of respect, and like, that must have been a big deal for my bro. Like, unless he brings it up, I'm not going to bring it up, which is probably a stupid, like, kind of maybe male way to look at it, where it would have been a better show of friendship to be like, bro, what happened? Like,
I heard it. I heard all of this, which is why before we got kicked off, I just wanted you to know, man, I will say it. And I don't think I've ever said to anybody in 10 years, I'm not cool talking about that. Okay. So in a way, I have recognized that I will remain stuck. And that's a painful thing, is to be stuck. And so part of my therapy, part of my cathartic, part of the aha moment, you're recording, so this is good. But part of my
if that's right,
aha moment with, oh man, see, now we could just go forever. It basically,
man, this is awesome.
Well, so, Brennan, it's interesting. And I don't know, maybe someone out there somewhere will remember, oh yeah, Chef Garcia. He was an American chef that worked on a few different, maybe someone hears this and they remember working with me or being, within the community during my time yachting, my 10 years on the boats. And what anyone will remember or see with this is like, didn't he have a what's with the hook? Where'd that come from? Did he pick that up at, in like one of those machines that like grab stuff? Yeah, 25-cent machines when you walk into Target. No, so I came home after 10 years of yachting to start my food brand and to work on a TV series, and all purpose to share my love of food with others. And it was at the very end of the summer in October, archery season. I'm an avid hunter and outdoorsman, and I was bow hunting, and 3 miles up a mountain in a little gully, trees and grass, sagebrush, looked like beautiful Montana backcountry, flora, fauna, terrain that I have been in and around since I was 6 years old. So there was like nothing new per se about it. And yet that specific drainage, when I came up to it, I came up on, imagine you got a 50-gallon oil drum, but you cut it in half. And so I saw a can on the ground, and within the can, when I snooped in and went and looked inside, I saw, like, imagine if this whole mop of hair was in the bottom of the can and there were a few claws and bones and things visible. And I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. And yet I was thinking about food. I was hunting. I was shopping. I was like, I got to get up the mountain and keep hunting. So
real quick, I just want to interrupt because I want to point out to people that might be hearing the story for the first time, is like, you were so far out in the middle of nowhere that half 55-gallon oil drum looked really out of place. And that's why you investigated further. It's why you had to go to it. Even though you're on the hunt, you were thinking food, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, good question. And so I want to set this, I want to frame this scenario. So where I live here in Southwest Montana, I mean, not more than 100 years ago, horse and buggy ruled, and horsemen ruled, and there were miners and trappers, and we are not that far from when that's what this was here, right? This part of the world. And so when you grow up in the woods here and running around, what I had grown up seeing is leftover detritus and trash and material from old mining camps, old sheep camps, old homesteads, old frontier stuff.
Fascinating.
And so
stuff. It's like treasure.
Totally treasure. It's totally fascinating. And so you're darn right, I'm going to snoop and investigate it, because it's like, well, what is it doing here? So yeah, I was miles from my truck, and yet on a good day, I may hike 15 miles. And so I was 3 miles up. So it wasn't so far that I couldn't just get to my truck as an able-bodied person in an hour if I had to.
Right.
And yet, so I pause because I see this can coming out of the ground, seemingly like buried, and inside it, it's pretty much empty, but I see a pile of fur and some bone and claw. And I'm talking, when I say a pile, it's like this, and dried, mummified. And I don't want anyone to get this wrong, because others have thought there was, it was this massive 400-pound bear. And, it was like a small pile of, it was like this mummified remains of something. And so I gave it no more thought than, that's interesting. I'll take a claw and keep going on my way. And the claw will live in a curio case, or I'll use it to teach, the community kids about nature, or, the Boy Scout mind didn't think anything past it. So a knife comes out, put it in my left hand, and I lean down, I get on my knees and I lean down into this can to pop a claw off, carve it off. And, I don't get within 16, 18 inches of the base of that can. And I am met with the sound of a high frequency when wires cross. It's kind of just, when you're at a sound check at a concert and you hear the mic and everyone's like, woo, it's like, that's the sound I heard. It was kind of like a Yes or Journey concert gone wrong in my head. Wow. And and what'd you say?
You were the amp. Like, you were there probably was a sound. It wasn't just electric going through your mind. It was, you probably made a pop.
Something popped. And I remember feeling heat. Imagine if someone took a blow dryer to the back of your head, you just felt warmth.
I feel like they
have. And Brennan's like, I miss that. And
styling.
Yeah. And So that is the last memory I have as a 30-year-old human. Leading up into that event was just sound, frequency, heat, lights out. And the next memory I have to this day is that my eyes opened up and I was looking at the sky and I recognized that clouds were just kind of slowly cruising. I remembered seeing some treetops and I remember thinking, why am I on my back? Where am I? And I remember the voice in my head saying, get up. You shouldn't be on your back. So get up, and kind of hearing that on repeat until I stood up. And then I have no recollection. I have gone back to the site. I have tried to piece it together many times, and I have no memory of what happened from the site to where my next current memory starts again, and it's of me walking.
So where, because we're if it's all right, like we covered. I remember you telling the walking where you could have just gone bomb straight down the mountain, and
Totally.
you'd rather but that same voice that said keep going said don't go that way, you won't make it, you got to go the slow route. Then what did you find? Who did you find? Where did you find? What happened after that walk? Did you make it back to your? I'm just grabbing my seltzer water. What did you find?
Right. So that walk brings me to the bottom of the valley floor. So I was in a mountainous area, right? And so the valley floor where the river runs and the highway and the road and lots of homes, and where I'd parked my truck at the National Forest trailhead. I know there's homes down there. And so my mission is get there. And I remember walking and getting within a couple hundred yards of the road, and on the other side of the road are the homes. And I remember watching this old timer, like Hollywood film style, beat up old red truck, park at the mailboxes, check the mail, cowboy hat, Wrangler, and he just a classic Montana. And I see him. He's the first human I've seen since this happened. And I just remember screaming on the inside, help me. And audibly, nothing really came out. It was it's not like my vocal cords were damaged, but I think the shock that I was in was so severe that I feel all the energy I had was going into the movement of my feet and the beating of my heart, and not to my voice and vocal cords.
Do you remember his reaction to you? Do you have a memory of that?
Oh yeah. And that's the point of this little side story, is that I was 100 yards from what I thought was salvation. This is someone who's going to help me. And from 100 yards, all he saw was a guy in camo walking down the road, which makes sense. It's hunting season. It's Montana. He kind of gave me a look and kept going. And
no. And you couldn't scream. Right. And you're like,
no, it's like the classic, shipwrecked at sea, and you're like waving, and the tanker doesn't see you and goes right by, And so, but that is not the end of my story. And, so I kept walking. What's another 100, 200 yards? And I made it to the first home I came upon, and there was a gentleman on the outside of his home, working on the exterior, a couple other people. There was a set of vacation cabin rentals, and that man ended up, and the couple people that were there, they ended up receiving me. And, within 10, 15 feet, they saw the need, and they got into action, called 911, and got me got paramedics there. And that was my first touch base with.
Do you remember that bits and pieces of that, or is it a clear recollection?
I remember for sure. I remember bits and pieces. I remember getting to the house. I remember them sitting me down. And I remember at that point just kind of looking, it's funny. I sat down and was now facing the mountain. I just walked off, and I remember looking up at it and kind of using my hand to explore my body a little bit while sitting there.
Terrifying.
I remember.
I've had much smaller accidents, and that's a gnarly moment in your life where you're like, what? Where am I hurt? Because everything hurts.
Yeah, and so I've had plastic surgery to fix it, but there was an exit wound on this part of my head right here, and I remember my hand when I got up here because I could feel pain or something that brought my, brought me to investigate this, and my fingers just like sunk into the exit wound.
Bro.
Yeah, and
that's like giving me anxiety, just that moment, because I've been to a much lesser moment, like I said, where it's just a broken bone. It isn't like I'm going into my skull now.
No, it was, well, my skull wasn't open. My scalp, your scalp's thicker than you think it is, especially when you got this, your scalp is like a solid 1/4 inch thick,
I think yours is thicker because it's got hair follicles. Mine is just like, it's just skin. I just cut it open like 2 months ago. Yours is thicker than mine. Good.
I don't know, maybe. But I remember apologizing because my I kind of like went like this and some hair fell out onto the ground. And I remember apologizing for that. And honestly, the next thing I remember, I live in a very small town, and there's one light. There's a highway and a dirt road a road that crosses it. Used to be dirt, not anymore. And so on the highway, it's a flashing yellow to slow, and for the crossing traffic, it's a red. And I remember looking through the back of the ambulance windows on the drive to the hospital, the closest hospital where they were going to stabilize me and get me on a plane, med jet. And I just remember seeing that flashing light and thinking, oh, I'm going through town. I'm going through my hometown, and I got stabilized at a local hospital. Again, it was like my high school town. So the EMT on call at the hospital, hey, Eddie, you look rough, bro. Hang in there. And he knew me, You
look rough.
Oh, yeah. And
what were the extent of your wounds? Well, you don't know at this point. You're in pain. That's all you know.
Oh, I didn't know. And there's so much nuance, and we could get lost forever here into it. But, I when they asked I challenge anyone, how many phone numbers do you know by heart? Now that the cell phone, none. You just dial it on your cell phone. But pre-cell phones, we knew everyone. You had at least the top 10. Yeah, you had to. And so I've never forgotten my family's numbers. And so I must have given them my older sister's number, the EMTs, and they called her. It's about a 50-minute drive from where they received me to the hospital where they discharged me. And they must have called her, and somehow she was at the hospital and got on that plane with me. I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just knew my sister was there, and my sister is, my guardian angel and like a second mom. Yeah. Indra.
Well, I've never met her, obviously, but yeah, we've just spoken a few times. She's awesome.
Yeah. And so it was almost like it made sense that she was there on the plane with me. And lo and behold, she was on a camping trip and had just came out of the woods and got cell service again. And her phone pinged like this. And it was just, your brother's been gravely injured in an electrical injury. We're taking him to Livingston Memorial, and she's like, turn the car around, babe. We gotta go. She grabbed her purse, her phone, and stepped onto the plane with me and just flew, Yeah.
Certain things mean more than anything else. Just, we got it. Credit card and a phone. That's kind of all you need these days.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And then obviously you went to, because we touched on it last time, you went to Utah. So it kind of, there's stages where it's like, there's an emergency, respond to emergency, pick up this patient, and then assess. And it's like, this is well beyond what we can take care of, even in this state.
Oh yeah, well beyond. There was two Pacific Northwest, or there was the medical team knew they had two options for someone as critically injured as me, and it was University of Washington or University of Utah. And Washington didn't have any open beds, and so they just pointed the plane to Utah and went. And I do remember landing on the tarmac. I guess they basically, they put me out, whatever that means. They kind of gave me enough meds to sedate me because my pain was going through the roof. And I remember coming to when we landed in Salt Lake, and I was being transferred from the ambulance, or from the medical jet to the ambulance, and the EMTs working the gurney, welcome to Salt Lake City, Mr. Garcia. Well, hang in there. We'll have you where you got to be in no time. And I must have come to, because I remember that. And I remember saying, Salt Lake, how am I going to get home tonight?
Oh, man.
I just had no concept of how gravely injured I was. I thought a little duct tape and super glue and a couple staples and I'd be good, and no.
Do you think that's kind of that's built into our minds with injuries like that? Like, it's part of why shock happens. Like, it's the good part of shock. Like, hey, ignorance is bliss. Don't let this human know how badly he's hurt, so maybe he can survive somehow, or she.
100%, I believe, and I've said this many times, I've been quoted as saying this, that I believe that ignorance was a critical part of my ability to remain positive throughout the whole 50-day stay in ICU, even throughout. Oh, yeah. 50 days, and
that's
maybe
not in the hospital. I just want to point this out to everyone else. That's not in a normal, like, I'm going to get my tonsils removed hospital bed. That's an ICU where he's monitored 24/7. I've been there myself, and it's a very different experience and I couldn't imagine 50 days. You're basically on death's doorstep for 50 days. Otherwise you wouldn't be in ICU.
Burn trauma ICU, the first 5 or 10 days was most definitely critical. And I don't know how many days it was, but let's just say by the 7th day or so, it was no more than a week or so. And, the decision I was presented with basically the facts, which are, so this hand was where the electricity came in, and therefore received the brunt of the blow. And it was critically charged, it was significantly charred, black, burnt. You could see bone. And their assessment after they cleaned it up was that, well, we're not going to be able to save all these fingers, and you may be left like this. Basically, if you kind of cut this out, you may be left with a little bit of a usable thumb and a pointer finger. And what do you do with that? And yet that we couldn't even get stuck on that point. What followed that was, but what really concerns us is that there is an infection in this forearm, that is running, that has the potential to basically just need to travel 19, 20 inches to your heart. And if that happens, it's game over. And I'll never forget, it was on the weekend in BT ICU. In ICU, there's no day, night, weekday, weekend. And yet in this scenario, I remember it was the weekend and hearing this news. And so the doctor presented the options, which are, it is elective, but we are highly we can try and salvage your hand and leave you with this, like pistol kind of situation. But the infection is really concerning for us, and we highly recommend that you choose to amputate. And I remember thinking, I was stabilized enough, so I was conscious. And I just remember thinking, I have come this far. There's no way that I'm going back down. So I think in that moment I sat up, I didn't sit up, but I was like, take me now, let's go. Where's the saw? I'm ready. Yeah. And he was like, cool your jets. We had to schedule the surgery. We'll do it on Monday, first thing. And we, I remember Jenny Jane, my girlfriend at the time, and, who ended up becoming my caregiver for that whole stay. My family was there too, but I remember Jenny, she was like, let's have a session with your hand. Let's say goodbye to it proper, let's take some photos of it. Let's recognize this. It's never going to happen again. And, I was on enough meds that the pain allowed me to actually remain conscious about some thought processes. and I had no issues entertaining the anatomical conversations of body. It's like, all right, and those photos will never see the light of day, I guess, but they're just raw and gripping, and the rest is history, right?
That's it. Yeah, I bet those. How many times do you think you've looked at those photos since you shot them?
Maybe a handful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if not anything, the photos I look at is I'll see a photo of me yachting or something, or I'll see a photo from the early the 2000s, and I'll see my left hand, and I'll be like, there you are, look at that sexy strong thing,
Saved my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But I remember, and I'm going to plug your movie a few times because I think it's a really important movie for anyone, not just because you're my friend and we've known each other for so long. We're both chefs. We've both been in yachting. But I've told a lot of people about that movie, and they've seen it, and they've just been floored. Like, they're so impressed by so many different levels of, like, your character, and then that you've documented the whole thing the whole time, and I remember when you put that out there and I watched it, and you were like, yeah, it feels kind of weird, like I think you said something to the effect of, like, it feels like I'm standing up naked in the room, because you put this documentary of what happened to you, and it was so personal and so raw. I'll never forget, again, these moments that obviously we weren't together, but I've had this massive empathy of how I would feel in your shoes. So it's for a split second, and obviously you lived it. But yeah, much respect, man. And again, I'm plugging that movie Charged. It's awesome. It's really cool. It's raw and uncut for sure. So, all right. So next question. Hand was one thing, but I remember there was like a cannonball size hole in the side of you.
Yeah.
Not just your head, what we talked about. But there's ribs sticking out of a hole.
Still missing. Soft spot. Yeah. Yeah, no. So I had 9 exit wounds and 1 entrance, 9 exit, and one of the exit wounds was right here through my left side, my left torso, and those ribs, I think 3 different ribs were briquettes. They were cooked, and so they ended up cutting those out and patching me back up and actually removing my latissimus. It's called a muscle flap, but they removed my latissimus from where it connects to your hip, and they brought it over and secured it across that hole, because I lost my portions of my obliques, the lower portion of my pec, my nipple. That's probably new to you. Maybe you didn't know that.
I've never on the Charge cover.
Yeah, they gave me the opportunity to get a nipple tattooed on, and I'm good. But yeah, so I still, I lost a significant amount of muscle on my left leg in 2 different spots. And, I live with the repercussions and the realities of that every day. If I'm horseback riding, snowmobiling, snowboarding, doing anything dynamic, any recreation that's dynamic, I wear a t-shirt with Velcro on the inside. And to that Velcro, I adhere a kind of like this book, but it's a chunk of carbon fiber, and it's a plate basically, and the plate covers that soft spot so that I don't catch something, because my vitals are just right there. There's no ribs to protect impact. Yeah. And so no more bar brawls, like I'm I've always been pretty much known for those. I was a haymaker. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But what it means though is, if I'm out and about and we're at a concert or a bar, like anywhere where there's potential for human error, like I have been this close to times where I actually think I've even had to call it, where I'm not a fighter, but I've been in a place where things were getting funky. And I've just simply, it's like, do I share my vulnerability and call it, or do I disguise it and protect my left flank and get out of here, And that's what, I know there's many people thinking, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about the ribs? And I can elect, it's like the last surgery out there that I chose not to do was to have titanium bars put in lieu of those removed ribs. And
Wolverine.
Gosh, I just haven't been able to bring myself to want to go into another surgery, especially because now in today's day and age, like my locomotion is pretty good. I've been able to stay fairly mobile, and I'm kind of, I'll wear the shield and just remember that I got a hole in my ribs.
Yeah, and that's your choice for sure, because you had something like 30 surgeries.
To date, about 21.
21.
Yeah.
That's enough.
21, that's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
It's it's just so cool to even though we've missed each other, I will say for the record, I've tried to visit you twice, and last time I was in ICU was on a motorcycle wreck again. My girlfriend at the time, Meg, was on the back. She was fine, but I trashed myself. So we were going to go visit this gentleman here, and boom, motorcycle accident, ICU for 7 days. And then last time, like less than a year ago, I was driving a friend's car from California, Ohio, and I hit one of these stupid things. And it's just like, I don't know, man. Got to try again, though. It's got to happen. Third time's a charm. Let's talk to me. Get together, talk some shit, cook some food.
We're here.
Yeah. Oh man, it's such a. There's so many things going through my mind, so many questions that I want to ask you. The burn unit, we touched on it briefly last time, but there's a fundraiser that you want to do. Like, what is your? I want to talk more about like how you're giving back, because that's where I think your strength really shows. Like to go through this, to persevere, to survive in these different points of your timeline where you might not have, or another person might not have, but now you've really flipped it on its head, and you're now using it to help other people or inspire other people or form communities of just groups of let's talk about this.
Sometimes we can be forced to the prescription that we need, and or we're brought, like we find the prescription through any which ways, and sharing my story has become a prescription. It has been part therapeutic for my psychology. And it has truly brought me to own this event, and it really started with community. It started with community and encouragement of others that, had 3 years after my injury. I think I was going into 3 years after, and maybe 2.5. And I recognized where I just was not, I was not ascending through the process of recovery as quickly as I thought I would psychologically. Physically, I was back to doing everything I could, and I was figuring it out. But in my emotional state, my mental state, I realized that I was feeling fairly stuck. And I was invited to go to New York City and attend a fundraiser for a group called the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And it's a nonprofit out of San Diego, California. And they raise awareness, build community, and grant prosthetic sport medicine to individuals of all ages living with physical disabilities, whether it's trauma-based like myself, or whether it's congenital, someone born with spina bifida that wants to surf. Well, Challenge Athletes Foundation is going to figure out how to help you go surf. That's awesome. It's amazing. It's amazing. And when the invite came, I thought, well, I looked at the website and I see a lot of running. I see a lot of biking, triathlon, Paralympic stuff. And my recreation, my athleticism was heavily rooted in the outdoors.
Netflix. Now you're totally back. So you're saying outdoors was that was your athleticism. Because I remember you as a surfer, fisherman, hunter. Like that's how I remember you. Obviously, you're still those things, but you weren't like, hey, let's go shoot some hoops. Or did you catch the football game the other day?
Sort of team sports wasn't my athletic focus. And yet when the invite came, I was, screw it, let's do it. Let me check this out. And so I just remember it was at that event that I recognized, by witnessing other individuals with similar physical scenarios, well, they're doing it, and they're doing it, and they're doing it, and they're doing it. And those athletes, and they they approached me. I was the new guy, and they approached me, and it was actually a younger man who approached me, saw my prosthetic, saw my injury, introduced himself, and after introducing himself, just went right for the hand. And he was like, "So you're running with that thing? Really?" Kind of calling me out. And I didn't know any better. I just knew that I wasn't comfortable walking around with. So if I take this off right now, you got my forearm right here, and I just wasn't comfortable a couple of years into my injury revealing my forearm, my stump, my amputated limb to the world. And it was this young man that kind of very gently but legitimately was like, "Well, I have the same amputation as you, and I don't run with prosthetics anymore because I'm more streamlined. I don't have this thing clanking around on me. And, we're going to go for a 5-mile clip right now." He's like, "Try it." So he like cheated up. He was like, "Try it."
Yeah, you want to ditch it.
And so it's kind of like, it's that line you must cross between fear and the unknown. And so I was, all right, let's take it off, And so I took it off, and, he kind of looked at the scar, and he's like, "Ooh, they closed that up nicely." And then like it was time to run. And
that was it.
The conversation switched to whatever you talk about when you're trying to suck air and run, like it was like nobody cared that it was, nobody was looking.
And it must have been a realization, because I'm learning this through you, because I do it to myself. We all do it. It's like that own monster in your own head that's telling you they're all going to laugh at you, or they're all going to like, no one gives a shit. No one actually cares except for you. And we put all this burden on ourselves. I think it takes a little bit of age and maturity, or something like that happening to you in an instance like that, where you're just like, I can apply this to other things in my life too, because no one actually gives a shit.
And those that do.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was sort of I think the question that brought us into this story was how one comes to a life-changing event, and how does it turn from being the worst day of your life and a legitimate trauma that rules the rest of that basically dictates what's up moving forward, and how does that transformed into something that actually provides or is purposeful and contributes.
If you can hear me, just pause for a sec. I can edit this. I can cut this. I can edit this. I'll do it tonight.
Well, the edit's going to take time, and I'm getting a notification that turkey pot pie is 20 minutes out, and I got to walk this dog first. So I hate being rushed with you though, man, because this is new for us, right? Like to go here and unpack this, and I don't like the idea that we're kind of rushed to not give this the full space we need and want. But I understand that on your end, you got to button it up in the right way. But if the internet's good, I could wrap up that point, because you had a question. You were like, how did you go from this not just tanking your life, and how did you turn it into purpose? And basically that New York event, it brought me to a place of ownership that I had not recognized, that I am an amputee. And I need to love on that hard, because for as long as I pretend that this isn't a part of my life, I am basically living with a certain percentage of myself over there, and I am walking not as a whole person. And so as soon as I saw this for what it was, and I said, nope, I am Eduardo Garcia, and I am now an amputee. It is a part of who I am. It doesn't define me per se, like it's not what I have to lead with, but I need to embrace that this happened. I have to own that. And when that happened, the 7 years since then have had a different lens, sort of the rose-colored lenses dropped, and I was able to just not sort of pretend this didn't happen every day, but rather just own it. And what I realized is I started getting back into work more. I started getting back into my friendships and relationships more. And I wasn't wasting time trying to hide a part of me that didn't deserve to be hidden. And what happens, I think, is that when you share with the universe who you are and what you're made of, and what you're interested in, the universe responds. It hears you.
I
And
agree
if
with
you're
that.
feeding it bullshit, well, it's going to respond with what it just heard.
Yeah.
So if you're feeding the world, I'm fine, I don't need nothing, I'm good, same old me, you're going to get that. And yet, so now I feel like through the help of others and through the ownership of what is, I have been able to really kind of stay open to, well, what's next? Because this wasn't a part of my plan. I left an incredible industry as a yacht chef, was told by friends, you're nuts for walking away from that. What are you doing? And that was freaking scary. This was not a part of my plan. This happened. It took innumerable individuals. It took innumerable days, hours, and time to get to a place where I was just owning it. And everything since then has just been life forward facing. Like, what are we going to do and how are we going to go about it? And I wouldn't go back for a minute, Brennan. I wouldn't go back for a minute. This thing has just simply, my mom says it best. She's like, she's like, maybe it brought you a dose of humility that was just necessary for you to achieve what you want to achieve in this world. Right.
Yeah.
And I'll take that.
Yeah.
On that.
That's good sound advice from mom. I think she might be onto something there. And it's, this is such a positive conversation to hear. Like, not many people on the planet have gone through something like that. Maybe some similar things and a lot of people worse things, but it's amazing, the human spirit. I think it's incredible that how adaptive it can be, how strong we can be. And I think of the things that I'm proud of you is that giving back, that aspect of, because I know for a fact that you're making it part of your business and it's right on your radar, like all the time. Like, I want to be a part of this community because I felt alone until I went for a run and someone who was my brother basically said, why are you doing that? Why are you hiding? It's fine. And then never talked about it again. It's, kind of without that community and that ownership and just friendship and kindness to people. We'd be screwed. We would get that negative feedback all the time that you were talking about. It's just yuck.
Yeah, we gotta have our light at the end of the tunnel. No matter, doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your industry is, whether you're on a boat, you're on land. Like, that's not this. It's life is hard, and pain is unavoidable, and death is a beautiful part of what life is, and I feel like those are forgotten languages. And so the more we do not discuss them, we do not embrace them, we do not recognize them, the more we lose our language for like complete beautiful humanity. And so if not anything, this brought the just no BS mortality back into full perspective, so that when you wake up, it's like, okay, what are we doing today? No idea what the day's gonna what's gonna bring. I know what I think is gonna happen, and I remain open to what the universe brings today. And I feel there's some beauty to that, and sort of just leaving space for the unknown to fill in,
I agree. I think the way our society deals with death, it's pretty absurd. Like, we don't face it at all. We ignored it and act like it's a surprise when it happens. And I noticed just through the motorcycle trip, through riding through countries that practice Islam, countries that practice Hindu, countries that practice Buddhism, they're not all of them, but they're much more upfront with the fact of death. It is unavoidable. And I do think that is one of like kind of the ills of our society, is we don't address it. And like I said, ignore it and act like this came out of nowhere. It's like, no, it's inevitable. It's guaranteed. And I just think it's like through what you went through, and then you're like, you looked right in the face. And then you decide. That's another thing I got from the Charge movie, is like, no, every day is so valuable, and I'm just going to cherish it.
Conversations like this are good reminders. I may say it may be out there, but I need to have that younger person call me out too. Yeah, exactly. And so you ask, you're like, so how did giving back and making, how did, your businesses being focused for purposeful good in the world, not just product and sales. The purposeful good part, I feel
You're breaking up again.
like continues to encourage when it gets tough. Man,
So sorry. Now you're back. How long until turkey time? How much more time you got?
I can probably do 10 minutes. And our service literally this week is better than it's ever been here, and has a pretty decent upload speed and download speed right now. So yeah, I apologize if it's me, but
I doubt it. It's probably me. But I'm thinking, do you mind if I show the first one as part 1 and this is part 2?
No, we can do part 3. It don't matter to me, but just let's round it out however you need it,
Yeah, I just think this is a great conversation. I think it's interesting, the fact that you and I are going over this stuff for the first time, friends for a long time, both yacht chefs. I just think you're one of the more inspirational people in the industry that I've even come in contact with. And I know you're not in the industry anymore, but irrelevant. And
thanks.
And I know you're going to be like the second and third episode, so there's not going to be a massive audience yet watching this. But whatever I can do to push your story out there, man. I think you're a pretty impressive human in general, whether or not you worked on yachts or not. It's a pleasure to know you, my man. Yeah.
Thanks, Brennan. I appreciate that. I really do. If not anything, there is no point in my cup can only hold so much. And at the end of the day, if I receive excess, it just spills out on the floor, and that's a shame. And so, in a world of finite energy and resources, I do not, I have been humbled by this, and I know that part of my drive, part of my interest in the work that I do, whether it's through trying to get people psyched to cook and learn how to cook and stick with food and fall back in love with cooking for others, and or if it's simply trying to inspire someone to fall back in love with themselves after a traumatic event, I feel like my cup always seems to have this space on top that I can't fill, right? And so, like, after my injury, when I felt like I was recovering, but I just couldn't cap it off. And you and I can create the most ridiculously tasty, beautiful, blah, 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 blah meal ever. And yet, what happens to all that value, all that gathered beauty, if it just sits on the stainless counter in the galley and no one picks it up, burps, chews it, and looks at you and is like, yeah, chef, that was good. It just sits and it never comes to life.
Passed on.
We have to connect with each other. We have to. That is how the magic happens. And so for me, with Montana Mex, with our business and with my work in messaging, what I know is that it is in service of others, because that is the point. And if there's no one out there listening, then, I really don't have any feedback as to if I'm on track, if I'm doing well, if I'm on the right stuff. And so, it's been a great gift in a really tragic sense. And it hasn't been overnight. We're talking 10 years later now. So there's been a lot of hardship and a lot of damage done. And yet you watch a forest fire ravage a hillside. And what we all know is that given water and oxygen, that hill will be covered in fresh green flora and fauna X number of months later, and it will do a bevy of great things for the ecosystem. So destruction, pain, death, it's all composting back in and out, man. So
I like how you look at it that way. It's a healthy way to look at it. And I could just imagine the time it takes to go to heal that way. And I don't know. It's incredible to watch you to grow and progress from that, because I think it would have took, maybe myself included, a lot longer, to step through those different fire rings onto the next phase or level, or however you want to gamify what you went through, and how you're growing into something that's positive for the world in a few different layers at least. And it's really, really impressive there, man. can't say that enough. It's probably getting embarrassing by now, but it's almost
Well,
turkey
no, I
time,
mean,
right? It's almost turkey time.
we're going to wrap this up, but I
Yeah.
also want to echo it back to you. And this is that same person that said it for me in Central Park. You know, I have been influenced by you. You know, I remember when you were raising money for Parkinson's, right? And the impetus for one of your first big trans country trips, you know, to benefit your dad. And that impacted me, right? Seeing my community going out, extending themselves to the greater good, that did not escape me. You know, I saw that, I noted it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I should be thinking big too. How can I impact in a big way? How can I, you know, and I'm like, yeah, oh, for sure, man. And every minute of our waking life is an opportunity to absorb inspiration if we're open to it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, you know, I've been equally moved by you, bro. Big time.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. That means a lot. And let's make a pact with each other to express appreciation when we notice people doing stuff. Let's just say, hey, man, that's awesome. I think we both do it anyway. But I think it's something I've been trying to just, even with crew members, like, I really like that you did that. Like, I really like that you said that. Or I like how you handled that. That would have been a little of an annoying situation. Rather than just letting it slide and silently appreciating it to ourselves. I think the world gets better the more that people get like that. A little bit of like, oh, that was cool. Oh, nice one.
Yeah, a little recognition.
Little recognition for the little things, you know, just the little things. But man, thanks for coming on again. I'd love to have you back anytime. Enjoy that turkey pot pie. And thanks for sharing your story. It's a special one, and it's so close to home for us yacht chefs. You're one of us. You know, you always will be. Definitely.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And for anyone taking the time to listen, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hearing the story, and be in touch. I always like hearing back from the world. So,
well, let's do one more plug for Charge. You will not regret. How much is it? $7.99? $9.99? Let's do
priceless. What are we talking about?
Charged.
I know it's priceless. What are we talking about?
Right. No, not for you, but I mean, I'm trying to plug it, like, because it's worth it. Whatever. It's like $10.
Wherever you download films, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Vimeo. My encouragement is I didn't edit the film. I didn't produce the film. I found myself and Jenny and my family were brave enough to say, yeah, we will share this story so that this event could potentially not stay a pile of ashes, but out of that burnt forest floor, we can be a part of bringing some life out of this. So that if this can serve as an example to help others, I'm in, we'll do it. And so without any of you watching Charged, it sits on a hard drive and it has no value. And yet if just one of you watches it and only 1 minute of the film connects with you because you think you know someone that needs it, get it to them.
Yeah.
And now it's served its purpose. So pass it on, give it life, bring it out, and then stay charged in your own world, however it translates to you.
You won't regret it. And everything we just talked about this whole time is in the movie, minus the walk down afterwards. They reenact it, but it's like one of the few parts that are reenacted. The rest of it is raw footage of Eduardo and Jenny in the hospital going through everything. They pulled no punches. It's incredible. Like you said, you're standing up naked in the room, emotionally, physically, and it's. I mean, it's obvious that I like it, but it's just incredible that you had the courage to do it. You come across great. It's not like it's incredible. It's one of those weird human pieces that I can't. It's like can't believe I don't even know you. Like, it's so incredible. Like, everything you've been through. I'm so proud, man. I gotta stop saying that. Anyway, it's
almost take it, Brennan.
Pie time. Happy pie time. Yeah. Thanks for being on. Let's do it again. Let's talk about anything else you want to talk about, man. Anything.
Happy to do it, Brennan. Thanks for having me, Chef. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Enjoy your pot pie. Take care, brother. See you on.
I hope you enjoyed Eduardo Garcia's tale as much as it can be told in such a short period of time. Fascinating. Love that dude. He's amazing. I think I'd like to have him on again and talk about his entrepreneurship and kind of the other stuff that he's going through in a positive way and how he helps people. Much more to tell. Love to have him back. Next week, we're going to have my friend Nikki, and she is a full-time volunteer on a boat called Pacific Hope. That it's not a yacht. It's like almost think of like a research vessel type boat, and it goes around the world to basically victims of natural disasters. It brings food, brings water, brings doctors, all these people, these volunteers, this network through our mutual friend Marvin, just come together and help people in need. I volunteered for a few weeks a couple of years ago, and it's so cool what they do. It's an amazing sort of scenario. So we'll get Nikki on, and she'll tell some stories about what they've done, where they've been, and who they've helped. Really good stuff. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed another episode of Get the Fork Out. Bye-bye.